Hey everybody, I'm Bennett and I'm back with American Idol Unaired, the singers you didn't see. And I'm very excited to welcome this week's singer that you didn't see on this season of American Idol. Please welcome Christiana Alaire.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to share a little bit about my story and just to talk about all the things that you guys didn't get to see.
Yeah, I'm so pumped because as you can probably tell by my background, if you're watching this on YouTube, which by the way, you can watch and listen, I'm a fan of American Idol. I've seen every episode and I kind of had the epiphany a couple years ago where I was like, they probably don't show every single person that shows up there. And we don't get to see, gosh, probably more than half of the contestants that actually make it to Hollywood. You make it to various rounds. But before we get to American Idol, first and foremost, you are an artist. So I want to know more about you
Yeah,
as a musician and what got you into music and everything.
absolutely. So I've been singing since I was able to talk. I always said the ABC song was my jam. I honestly, it's a miracle that I'm able to sing because I had no musical family members at all, no musical family history. So it was kind of just me, which made it better on my side because it was my thing. Like all my siblings had our own things, and our family members had their own thing that they, devoted their lives to. And mine was always music. And so it was kind of cool to have like a little separate thing of my own in my family. So I grew up singing. I grew up listening to Shania Twain, Jennifer Nettles, Joss Stone was one of my giant influences. And it was actually when I was probably like 4 or 5, and I was in the car riding with my mom and my aunt, listening to a Joss Stone song, and they kind of turned around and they were like, "Is that you singing, or is that the radio, or am I hearing things?" And so that's kind of where things started, and it was a the big bang moment right there where then I kind of started devoting my whole life to being a musician and being a performing artist. Started doing musical theater as you do when you're younger, and just exploring that kind of route. And then like chorus in high school and middle school. And around probably 13 or 14 years old, I started getting really serious about recording my own music in Nashville and, just immersing myself in the industry. And when I got the opportunity to move to Nashville for college, then that was a no brainer for me. So came straight after high school, graduated at 16, moved here to Nashville immediately after that, and started going to Belmont. So
Wow.
since then, it's been 4 years. I've graduated now, and I am just full throttle pushing music like I always planned on it.
That's so fun. Well, we were just saying before, I went to Belmont for a period of time, so we have that connection. And I love Nashville. I want to get back there so bad. I mean, what's it like just to live there? I mean, it's obviously great for music, but it seems like an awesome place to live.
Yeah. I'm probably like the number one most like push everyone to move to Nashville type of
Yes.
person. I think I have personally convinced like 4 or 5 people to move here full time. I It is my favorite city in the world. I think that it provides everything that you need, but people get intimidated by it because it is, everybody here doing music. My way of putting it is that it is such a small town in a big city.
Mm.
Everybody knows everybody. You can make connections by going to get food, by going to the grocery store, by going to work out. Like anything you do, you're going to meet somebody that's going to know somebody that you may need to know, or that you might just want to know, like making friends and making co-writers and those kinds of connections. It's really easy to meet people, and I think that's like the thing that drives the city is just how connection based it is. So I have found that it's been awesome just like meeting tons of new people. You always get, all the musicians, but there's so many different industries here that aren't music that are also thriving, like, with the medical industry and the hospitality industry and like all those kinds of things. Like you're finding, I like to say it's the smaller version of New York and LA. Like it's a melting pot. You're going to get everything, a little bit of everything. Everybody's from everywhere. And that's why we have terrible drivers here.
Uh, I was just gonna say, like, I'm thinking about New York and LA, and I imagine that a lot of artists of any kind, they're thinking about New York or LA, and they're probably feeling that same intimidation. But my feeling of having been to Nashville several times is once you get there, you feel relieved because yes, you're in a big city, but it is that small town where everybody knows everybody. And
Oh, yeah.
frankly, I mean, I haven't really been to New York or LA, but well, I've been, but I haven't spent much time there. I've
Right.
been to Nashville quite a bit, and I've been there long enough to know that people are nice there. So, you
Oh,
get
yeah.
there and you feel
It's
right at
still the
home.
South. Yeah, it's still the South. So people are still nice. Like I said, you still get the people from everywhere and it's kind of just like this melting pot. But it's really it's great to kind of like not have to go very far and meet people from all over as well.
Yeah. And I know people are not here to listen to us talk about food, but let me just say that one of the main reasons I want to get back to Nashville is the food. Whether it's Hattie B's, you got to get hot chicken or
Oh
barbecue,
yeah. I
anything and
just had
everything.
Hattie B's. I just had Hattie B's the other day.
Oh my
And
gosh.
people, if anybody on here that's listening knows me very well, they already know this fact about me. But if you don't know me, then you'll learn right now and you'll probably hit me up for it. But I have a 3-page itinerary of things that I have put on there: food, attractions, shows and live music and cover bands and everything to do in Nashville. And it's mainly focused around the food and the music.
Yes.
But the food section is so incredibly long. And I actually heard a statistic one time when I first moved here that if you went to a different restaurant every single day for 5 years in Nashville, that it would take you just about that long to get through them all. And at this point, now, since it's been 4 years since I even heard that, I'm assuming that if you spent 5 years and went to a different restaurant every single day, you would not even get close to covering it. So, I mean, they're popping up every day.
Wow. We might have to add that itinerary to the show notes because I think after people hear this, they're going to be like, whether they've
Oh,
heard
yeah.
of Nashville or never heard of it, they're going to be like, I have to get there right now. Freshman year at Belmont, one thing that kind of sucked is I didn't have my car, but I had a really strong Hattie B's craving on like a Sunday, and
Oh, yeah.
Sundays when they have chicken and waffles. So I'm like, I got to get this. It was right before spring break, and little did I know it'd be right before the pandemic hit. So it was a perfect kind of like, all right, one last hurrah. We're not gonna be able to go to restaurants for months. So I
Yeah.
got myself chicken, waffles, and mac and cheese and French fries, and I
Oh, my
walked
gosh.
35 minutes there and back, and it was worth it because it was a
Oh,
dang
yeah.
good meal.
I spent a ridiculous amount of money at Hattie B's the other
Mm-hmm.
day, getting pretty much everything that they had on the menu because I love it so much. And I don't, when you're a local in Nashville, you don't go to all of the like touristy places as much. And so now that I've been here for 4 years, like the places are there, they're not going anywhere. And there's like 4 different locations. So it's like I could go whenever I want to. And so I choose to not very often so that it's still good. Like I
Yeah.
keep it slim so that when I go, it's worth it, just like that.
Yeah, you can't like you can't say, well, I'll have the fries, but I want this. You got to get everything, so you might as
Yeah,
well spread it out. But
exactly.
then when you go, you just go hard
Yeah,
and get everything.
splurge.
Mm.
Yeah, y'all
I've
didn't know it was American Idol unaired, but also sponsored by Hattie B's.
literally, I think if I get an email from them, I'll be very happy.
Heck
And
yeah.
also I don't live there, so like, can you please send me chicken? Like that'd be amazing. Um, a question that I think we're not quite to Idol yet, but I think people might be interested in hearing the answer from you is you did go to music school, and as I said, I was at Belmont for a period of time. Do you find that being in music school, because I think there's a lot of different opinions about this, how does it impact? I mean, I imagine being in Belmont, gives you so many resources and connections for being an artist, but what would you say about sort of the energy to be in an environment with other people as opposed to if you just like went to Vanderbilt and also did music?
Yeah, so my Belmont story and like music school story is actually kind of interesting. I started in my first semester as a commercial voice major, so I thought I was going to be, like in the actual school of music, doing that, learning music stuff, that I had been practicing my whole life, that kind of thing. But when I got there, I realized it wasn't a good fit for me, that program specifically, just because of the types of classes that you had to take. Just something wasn't vibing, and I honestly wasn't doing that well in school because I wasn't putting everything that I could into it. So once I realized what was going on, I actually switched into the music business school, and that changed my life. It changed my perspective on my career. It did a lot for me. I think that's what set me forward on the journey I'm on now. And it's because that program was focused around attempting to be an artist while you were under the care and guidance of these awesome people that were in the music industry. Whereas the commercial voice program was more focused on like learn what you can while you're here. And then once you're out of here, you'll be ready to kind of launch your career type thing.
Mm,
Whereas I was ready to launch my career then, and I really wanted to be able to do it with the guidance and just like feedback of all of these, renowned professors that I had, and people that were so acclaimed in the industry. And that actually helped me tremendously, even with Idol, like when, there's a lot of things that go into the background that you forget about, like the legal things and, all like the little details. And I was able to kind of, go back to past professors and say, hey, I know this is what you specialize in and I need some help, or at least just give me your opinion on this, And when it comes to like contracts and things like that, I went to a professor that I had, a contract law professor, and I was like, hey, I have these contracts. I know I'm going to sign them, but I really want to know what's inside them, all the details, so that I know what I'm getting myself into and what I'm allowed to do after this, that kind of thing. So, and I feel like a lot of people miss over some of those kinds of steps. Whereas like, that's what helped me so much at Belmont was learning, contract law and copyright law and artist management and, public relations in the music industry. Those kinds of classes that I took helped me learn how to create an artist, which then helped me implement it into my own artistry. And I actually ended up being a publicist and working at a publicity firm for about a year after I took this publicity in the industry class, because I just got so invested in what it was that we were creating and that I had good skills at doing that. And, turning an artist's vision, translating an artist's vision into what they need for their brand. And so I also do that obviously for myself, but it helped so much learning from implementing it with other artists' careers, getting ideas from that. And then on the flip side, also using ideas from my own career on other artists, which was, really cool to kind of practice too.
Wow. Now, what year did you graduate?
I graduated this past December, so in 2021.
Oh, wow. So you're probably starting the idol journey as you're finishing out school. Is that correct?
I actually was going through the entire idol process through my last semester of college.
Wow.
And I am 20 years old. I just turned 20. I literally, my first audition video, I said, hey, idol team, like I'm 19 for the next couple of days. And then I turned 20. And yeah, so there was that. I turned 20. I found out that I was going to be on the show. I was still in my last semester before graduation. I then had to go to my professors, which this was the saving grace of being at like music school or being at like a music focused school, or especially just like a school in Music City. I went to my teachers and I said, hey, I've got this opportunity. It's American Idol. I'm not going to turn it down, but I'm also about to graduate. So I really need to kind of, do these things at the same time and make them work for my schedule and, not throw away my opportunities. And all of my teachers were so okay with it. They were like, yeah, we've been through this hundreds of times. We've had tons of students do things like this. So like, we are built for this, which is actually
Wow.
what one of my professors said to me. They said, we are built to handle things like this because we want you guys to be attempting to push your careers now so that we can help you and make sure that you're doing it safely and, you're like setting yourself up well. On the flip side of that, with the commercial voice program, like I was saying, they were more, like hold that until you're really developed and then try. So,
Mm.
yeah, I'm so thankful for all the professors that helped me get through that last semester, who helped me graduate on time. As soon as the idol thing was over, I literally came home and 3 days later I graduated from college. So that was a whirlwind of a semester.
Now, hang on. So you're my second guest who is 20 years old and has already graduated from college. Now, maybe this is a musician thing. I mean, I'm not, I'm sure it's strategic. How many semesters did you have to pull to make this happen?
So it actually, it's a much larger plan than how it seems. When I was about 11 years old, I was in middle school and I had always been a star student, always in the gifted program, always had scores out off the charts on the standardized tests. And I loved school. I was so, good at doing school because that was a big thing that I loved to do. And in middle school, I started slacking a little bit. My grades were dropping. And my mom was asking me, why are your grades dropping? What's going on? And it was because I wasn't applying myself. I wasn't engaging because one, I already knew the material. And two, my social life at school was going terribly. I just was not fitting in with the new people. I had just moved to a new school. And so a lot of things were happening and I started slacking. And so my mom was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to get you tested, see where you land in, in the grade spectrum and, see where we go from here. Just like, let's just see what happens. And so we got all the tests done, all the standardized testing. They did academic testing, they did social testing, they did everything. And all they did, so basically I was at the beginning of 7th grade, and they did the end of the year 8th grade test, and I passed it with flying colors. And so they said, if you want to skip a grade, you can do that. And so they had meetings with my teachers, and I had a lot of people telling me, like, you can't do it, you can't do it, because they didn't know me. And thankfully, my gifted teacher from elementary school actually had gotten a promotion to be like the superintendent of the county. So she walked into the meeting, saw me, saw my parents, and immediately said, oh yeah, she can do it. I already know this child, she can do it.
Wow.
And so against all the other teachers who, had been seeing me not really applying myself and saying that I wasn't capable of doing that, she had pushed me through. So thankfully, with the support of that one woman, I was able to skip a grade, and then that's what pushed me to graduate from high school at 16. And the whole point of this, with my mom involved in everything, we planned to graduate high school at 16, and then move on to college, and then graduate college by 20 years old to be able to push my music career full throttle, and also have a degree behind my name, and not have to worry about like postponing school until after music. I wanted to like kind of get it out of the way, and also learn as much as I can while also being in Music City. So it ended up working out perfectly and exactly on the schedule that I wanted it to. But it was a long process, and it wasn't. And then actually in college, I graduated a semester early as well. So my last 4 semesters, I overloaded. So on top of American Idol, I was also doing 18 credit hours of school for the last 4 semesters, and then on. So
Wow.
yeah, yeah. Glad to be done. Glad to
Oh
be
my
done.
goodness. Okay, so are you approached about Idol, or do you choose to audition yourself?
When I had graduated at 16, from high school, I had decided that I wanted to try out for
Mm.
like a lot of music shows and just see what happened from all the different shows, not just American Idol, all of them. So I tried and I tried and I tried and I tried, and I always would get like 1 or 2 rounds into the like preliminary process. And then after that, they'd be like, you're not ready yet. And
Mm.
so for a while, I'm like, what do you mean I'm not ready? But then I was like, okay, maybe if all these people are telling me the same thing, then they're right. I'm not ready yet. So I decided to go to school instead of, being on a show or like continuously trying that process. So just decided to go to music school and, develop a little bit more. That was my plan. Like develop, figure out who you want to be. And then after that, we can see what happens. So a year and a half into school, I got an email from a producer that had seen me audition for a previous show, a different one that was not American Idol. And she was like, hey, it's been a while. I remember you. I'm working on American Idol now, and I wanted to know if you wanted to audition. And I completely ignored the email. It
Mm.
had been, and I wasn't interested, because at that point, I was so devoted to developing myself, developing my artist message, developing my look, developing everything, that I really was not ready to try something else after being told you're not ready. I wanted to give it some time. So I ignored the email, and then just so happened that last season, one of my close friends, Willie Spence, had gotten second place.
No
And I
way.
grew up
Sorry, I'm
singing with
shocked
him
right
in the
now,
show
Willie.
choir.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I grew up singing with him in a show choir. And when he got second place, I was like, well, this is a close friend. We used to sing together all the time. If he's shooting his shot, why wouldn't I just shoot my shot? And so I responded to that email 3 years later. And I said, hey, remember me? I'm so sorry that I have not gotten back to you. I did not feel like I was ready at that time. But if you're still in the same position, and you're still, working for American Idol, and you're still wanting me to audition, I think I'm ready now, and I would love to do so. And a couple days later, I got an email back that was like, hey, Christiana, like, if you're interested, let's hop on the phone real quick and talk, and audition start in a couple of days. So if you want to do it, you're ready, you go ahead, audition. And so that's where it started. I was reached out to years ago, and then I kind of put it on the back burners because I wanted to keep developing my, my artist brand as a
Hmm.
whole, and my artist message. And then once I reached out again, it just so happened that the cards fit, and it was the right time.
Wow. So, well, 2 questions. So you said that the producer used to work on a different show, or they had always worked for Idol?
So they worked on a different show.
Okay,
It
and then
was
they
like
moved.
one of the casting producers, and they have tons of different casting producers that work on tons of different shows across different networks. ABC,
Right.
all the ABC shows, all the NBC shows, CBS shows, all that kind of stuff. And so they had worked for an NBC show previously. I won't say which one, but one of those
Yes.
previously.
Take that
And
one of two
that's
ways.
where yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so I had auditioned for that, and again, won't say which one, just on the
Mm.
off chance that, more opportunities come down the line. But auditioned for one and didn't work out. But thankfully she had remembered me and, reached out after that to see what we could do going forward. And it worked out for the better.
Right. Now the second question is, so when you say that they say go right ahead, does that mean go right ahead to the EP round, or do you get to go right to the judges?
Oh no. So there are a lot of rounds that you don't see before the judge round. And so basically when she said, auditions start, that was kind of I had to audition for her again, just her, because it had been so long since the first time she had seen me. So I feel like it was one of those like preliminary, let's just
Mm.
make sure that you're still doing what you were doing before. And
Right.
so after I passed with her, she gave me some feedback. She gave me, she had me sing like 10 different songs and was like, okay, these ones were really good. Let's do these ones. And then I moved on to an executive producer's audition. And I passed that one. And then there was actually one more after that. And then after that one, they did like story interview process, kind of. Not, it wasn't like an audition, but it was, just them kind of like vetting out your story, seeing, where you are, what you've been doing the last couple of years, what your plan is going forward, all that kind of stuff. And then after that, you get on to the judges audition. So thankfully I made it to the judges audition and passed that. But yeah.
Yeah, so wow, so that's interesting because usually, well, so listeners now kind of know I guess, usually, typically in a regular situation, it's like the cattle call, which used to be a bus and
Mm-hmm.
is now all virtual. And
Yep.
then, or even before the bus days when Idol was humongous, it was waiting in line with hundreds of thousands
Yep.
of people all
And
in
I
one
did
day.
that. I did
Hmm.
that a couple times. Yep.
Yeah. And then like the next EP round is where they audition for the, I guess, showrunners who currently, I think I've said before, Megan and Trish. I don't know if those names
Yep.
ring a bell to you. And
Absolutely.
then they make it to the judges. So for you, it's re-audition for a producer who knew you before you even get to the cattle call round. So then you do cattle call, then EP, and then judges, and interviews are
So
mixed in there.
so tech with this one, like because I had been scouted. Sorry, my dog is scratching, so I'm gonna start that over in just a second. Where are you trying to get at? She's scratching on the ground. She never does that. So I'm like, I think she's trying to find a good spot to lay down. But anyways, so with the way that it worked out, because I was scouted instead of kind of like reached out myself, I got to kind of skip over that cattle call round,
Hmm.
and I went straight. My audition in front of her, in front of that producer, was kind of my alternative to doing the cattle call.
Okay, gotcha.
So yeah, so other people probably would have gone through her if they were going cattle call route. But in my case, it was just like a one-on-one type of situation, but that was still like the same level, if that made sense. So that cattle call with her, privately, and then after that moved on to executive producers, and then after that was one more executive producers, and then
Hmm.
story, and then judges. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
So, okay, so you get to, wild guess here, you audition in Nashville?
Actually, no. So I auditioned in Austin, Texas.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So what was
Yeah.
the
So it
reasoning?
was a lot of people ask me that. And to be completely honest, it was vaccination requirements. Just
Hmm.
wanted to make sure that we were gonna, that I was gonna be on the show beforehand. Or that I was gonna like make it past that round. And the Nashville audition was only like a week before Hollywood Week or 2 weeks before Hollywood Week. So had I gone to the Nashville one and not been fully vaccinated, I wouldn't have been able to go to Hollywood. So I wanted to make sure that because I hadn't been fully vaccinated at that point, so I wanted to make sure that I was going to go to Hollywood to have the requirements fulfilled and like the amount of time and everything to be able to go without like missing my shot because of something like that.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So Austin, Texas, and that's like October, sometime around there that they're filming that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Um,
October.
And as I've heard now many times, it's a long day of waiting. It's not like what you would think it is on
It's
TV.
hurry up and wait. They always say hurry up and
Yeah.
wait.
But if you're lucky, you might go earlier. So were you one of the lucky ones, or were you one of the let me sit here for 8 hours contestants?
So it's split up by a couple of days, and it's like made to look like one day. But most of the auditions are done around the same times. And I was lucky in the sense of I had actually been sick before going, and so I was lucky that I got to wait a little bit of time so that I was like healing still, and able to like take my vitamins and all of
Right.
that for a couple extra days. But I had to do all the sitting and waiting for like the basic filming, basic interviews, basic like B-roll type stuff where they're just filming you sitting and waiting, that kind of thing. And then on the actual day of my audition, I went third, so I didn't have to wait very long.
Wow.
So
There
yeah,
we
I
go.
was lucky number three.
Yeah. And are you feeling pretty good about going in front of the three judges? Is it a mix of nerves and excitement? Where's your head at?
For the first time in my entire life, I was not nervous at all until I walked into the
Hmm.
room.
Yeah.
But before that, all the sitting and waiting, everyone's like, "Oh my god, I'm so nervous! I'm so nervous," and everything had fallen into place so perfectly for me that it was almost as if like I had nothing to be nervous about because I knew I was meant to be there. And that was actually like one of the first things that they asked me when I walked in. Like, why are you here today? Why are you auditioning? And my response was, the universe told me that I am supposed to be right here today. Like I am, everything with the school, my schooling allowing me to take this time off to go do that. And also with, being sick, and also with the 3 years not responding to that email. And then all that just like working out perfectly. It just felt so full circle. And it had been like 3 years since I did the first cattle call where I sat out and waited with the thousands of people. It was like almost exactly the same day as when I auditioned in front of the judges for real. So
Hmm.
that was kind of like this huge whoa coincidence that, 3 or 4 years ago I had tried and didn't make it very far. And now all these things worked out and got me to where I am now. So that was really cool. But once I stepped into the judges room, oh, it was all nerves came back. They all
Oh
came back to
man.
me.
I want to hear about like, was there chat banter with them, or was it pretty quick into let's hear you sing?
They definitely wanted to chat first. And I think if I could go back, I would probably have prolonged that just a little bit more in the sense of like, I don't feel like I got to represent my story as much with the judges, where I think a lot of people that got aired, I think that's where their success was, is they got straight to the point of like, this is why I'm here. This is what brought me here, or like what might be my connection to the song, or like those kinds of things. And I was more like, I've worked really hard and I do these and these. I mean, they asked me questions that prompted my answers, but they weren't, asking me like those tough, heart wrenching questions. They were kind of just trying to get to know me. So I wish that I would have been a little bit more forward about, like the journey that it's taken to get here, rather
Right.
than just being like, I love to sing, which I didn't say that. I wasn't just like, I love
Yeah.
to sing, but it was more like, I'm ready. I'm here to sing for you guys, rather than, saying like, hey guys, I've been trying for this for a really long time. I've set myself up in all these ways. And like, I'm really excited to share that with you guys. I was more like, I'm really excited to sing and, share that information.
Mm.
So yeah, but they asked me lots of questions. We talked about me being a publicist because at the time I was working for that publicity firm, and Lionel Richie continuously over and over again was just saying, "Smart girl,
Ah.
smart girl. That's really smart of you to do that. That's
Oh.
great. That's great." And so that was honestly like a good moment, good like motivator. I was like, you know what, Lionel Richie said I'm doing a good job.
Yeah. And tell me about Katie, Luke. And the whole dynamic between the three of them, because they have good chemistry.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they have a lot of chemistry. You can tell they're super family oriented, and they are a family. The three of them, they are a trio that is they're very well fit. They all have their role as like Lionel. We would call him like the grandpa, where
Papa
he's just like
Lionel.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so happy to be there, so motivational. My biggest thing I kept saying all the whole process is, I just want to go to Christmas at Lionel's. Like I
Ah.
just want to go to Christmas at Lionel's so badly. this is me manifesting it. One day I'm going to Christmas at Lionel's house,
Mm-hmm.
but he is just such like the whole time, all the feedback he gave me was, if you just stop thinking about it, you've got it down. He was like, that was great, but I can tell that you're in your head. And if you can get out of your own head, you've got it. And that's what he said. And so that was great. And he went first. And Katie, she was a little tough because when I first walked in, she was like, oh my God, I love your style. I love your outfit. We were talking about that, whatever, whatever. And when I made a joke about, or like when I said I was a publicist, she made a joke about, can you please help Luke Bryan get his career together? And so that, she's just always like downing on him, just like making jokes about him. And he's such a good sport. He's just like throwing it right back to her too. But it was hilarious. That whole section was really funny. And I kind of wish they would have aired that because, she was saying that Luke Bryan's career needs to get some help. But when it came to like the singing feedback, her biggest thing, which I think helped me tremendously, is, now I look back on it and I'm like, I'm glad I got this feedback. Then I was a little upset, but she just told me that she didn't emotionally connect with my performance. And I could tell that because the other people that were going were talking about their story first and saying, like, here's my connection to the song, that she was feeling more of, where their heart was and where their mind was when they were singing it, rather than me. I didn't really preface why I was singing that song. I just said, I'm singing this song and here it is. And I did it. And she just didn't emotionally connect. So she said, you're competing against other people who have given me raccoon eyes. So I don't know if you're going to like live up to the competition. And so she actually gave me a no. Lionel gave me a yes. She gave me a no. And then it was down to Luke. And Luke kept saying over and over again, when it got to him, he was like, man, I just have been so drawn to your energy. He was like, the second that you walked into the room, I really liked what you brought in here. I'm just really, drawn to your energy and just like what you're putting out to the room. And he was like, so I'm going to take a chance on you and I'm going to give you a yes. And so that's, of course, when I break down and ugly cry.
That's good TV. I don't know why they didn't air that.
I know. Honestly, if like somebody told me, oh, if you cried, then you're definitely getting aired. And I was like, I cried so much. And it was all happy tears. But you have to think about like all that adrenaline is rushing through your body and, the tension is building, it's building. And then as soon as they say like you're going through, it just releases in the sense of like ugly crying tears, of course. But I mean, it was everything. It was that moment where, they always say like you see your life flash before your eyes. Well, I saw my life flash before my eyes at that moment because it was like all of this has worked up to this moment. And here it is, just like releasing all that tension. And so I just was bawling and just crying and, feeling all the chills and all that. But they said something that actually I was super glad came through. I sing country soul music, emphasis on the soul. And I've always struggled with whether to go towards the country route or like the soul R&B route. And so this time I decided I was going to do my own thing, which is a mix of those two, without saying I do country soul music. I'm just going to do it. And so I did my song and the judges responded and said, I can really hear this country soul thing you have going on and like this rootsy thing. And like they kept saying words that are exactly how I would describe my sound. So I was really thrilled that exactly what I was trying to put onto them was coming across and that, they were seeing what I was putting out, I guess.
What songs you sing?
For my first audition, I sang High by Miley Cyrus off her Plastic Hearts album.
Interesting. Now you're saying in front of the judges or like previously in the other rounds?
In front of the judges. This was the one I sang. Yep.
Gotcha. And you talk about that moment, that everything is falling into place. And all I'm thinking to myself is some people wait a lifetime for a moment like this.
Heck yeah. And it's almost as if that was the show's motto this year.
Oh, yeah.
It was great. That I think that, that does totally sum it up for real.
Right. And it's not like they didn't have a huge backdrop with the song as you're doing
Absolutely.
your interviews.
I know. Unfortunately, I didn't get to make it into that room. I wish I would have, but just for timing reasons, I didn't get a chance to go into that one. But I was like, that would have been really cute pictures. But yeah.
Did you get to the 180 room?
No. So it's kind of the same. It's like the same Yeah. Yeah. And that's where I did not get to go because of timing. But,
Hmm.
and I was kind of towards like the end of all the contestants. Like I was on the last day of auditions. I was third throughout the day, but I was on the last day. So most all that stuff had been captured throughout the first couple of, like I said, just because of timing reasons, I didn't get to go in there, but it's okay.
Yeah.
That's all right. Next
Right.
time.
Yeah. Okay. So as you said, Hollywood Week. Well, it wasn't as much of a rush because you weren't in Nashville auditioning, but probably like early December, you're heading out to LA to
Hmm.
film Hollywood Week at the Orpheum. That's got to be like the adrenaline of just knowing that you're actually going to get to meet your competition, other than the people you may have met that day at the auditions. How
Yeah.
does it feel to enter this Idol Dome with 150 something other people with the same dream as you?
That's a good way to put it, actually, the Idol Dome, because it very much does feel like that. Like you're walking in, and the first thing on your mind is, oh my gosh, all of these people are competitors. The second thing on your mind is, oh my gosh, all of these people could be friends. The third thing on your mind is like, oh my gosh, all of these people are musicians that I could be, working with in the future. I could be learning from. And for me, the first thing that was in my head was soak up every single thing
Mm,
you can from each one of these people. Because I was, I'm experienced, but I was not even close to one of the most experienced, and I was not close to being one of the least experienced. And I learned things from both ends of the spectrum. The people that had no experience, I was learning tons of things from them just because, like, I have been doing this my whole life. And so, some things that are first nature to me, and they're trying to learn things like that. Like it's just so much different in translation. For me, like these kinds of things come natural versus other people that are just learning them through the American Idol process. And also, like, you can learn from what other people are learning too. Like the vocal coaches that are around, when they were giving advice to the person next to me, you best bet I was sitting there with my ears wide open and my, recorder on in my head, like record every single piece of this information that they're giving, because it's great information. And so not only was I learning things vocally, but I was learning things about social media. I was learning things about how to dress, how to, talk to the camera, all those things, which, like, I thought I had experience with a lot of that. But like I said, some of these people have been doing this way longer than me, or, had way more experience, and, just like so many more accolades to rely on to know all of these things. So I soaked up every bit of information that I could. And I didn't really look at them as competitors. I more looked at the whole process as I'm competing against my last performance, and I'm
mm.
competing against my best, and trying to top that every time. So I think
It's
that was a good way to look at it.
it's almost like all those years of being a rock star student academically really paid off for you in this moment, because you were, I imagine, applying a lot of the same sort of principles of, like, sure, you're not learning chemistry or, calculus, but you're really used to, like, pushing yourself academically. I imagine that when you're in another high stress environment, I mean, Hollywood Week is the ultimate test for an artist. And
Oh yeah.
there's no denying, just from everything you hear from people that have gone on to win the show years later, they say, I'll never work as hard as I did. And that week in particular is just, it's designed to crush you. And if you,
Absolutely.
even if you don't air, if you just make it through that, like, props, because it's some people,
Yeah.
you see it on TV, some people really fall under the pressure.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly what you just said. Like Hollywood Week is one of, I mean, they call it Hell Week for a reason. And it absolutely is that. If you work really hard, it can be super fun, but also it is very draining. It's from 5 in the morning to midnight. And if you're me and you're getting up at 3:30 in the morning to get ready, then it's 3:30 in the morning till 1:30 in the morning so that I can take all my makeup off and everything at the end of the night. So it was that over and over and over again. So, waking up at 3:30 and going to bed at 1:30 is very, very rough on not only your vocal cords, but just your whole body and your energy levels and things. And also throughout that process, you're not eating as well as you should be. You're not drinking water as much as you should be because your mind's racing. You're sitting and you're waiting, or you're on camera and you can't be eating, things like that. It is just so much pressure. But the one thing that I did the entire American Idol process that I am very, very thankful for, which, like you were saying, my education super, super helped in all of these things. But I went in there trying to learn every single staff member's name. And my superpower is names. Like I will never forget someone's name. If they tell me twice, I will never forget your name. That is a superpower of mine. And I went through every person that I could meet and asked their names and talked to them a little bit, made connections, made like oh yeah, you're from this place. Well, I'm from this place, or I know that this person that is there, or blah, 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 those kinds of things. Just making connections with every single person. And I honestly focused on the staff members because those were the people that were deciding whether, they wanted to have dinner with me. And if that's the type of person that they would want to, promote on the show or in past the show. I mean, I got on this show because somebody saw me auditioning for a different show and just remembered me and thought I would be a good fit. So if that could happen 10 times over throughout the amount of, connections that I made and different opportunities, then you never know what could happen. So I was trying to learn, all the cameramen and the people who were miking us up and, the security guys and, the contestant managers and all of that. Like I tried to get to know them and have at least one or two little talking points of things that we made a connection over so that they also remembered me. And by the end of it, my name's kind of hard, Christiana. I mean, a lot of people call me a lot of different things. And I will say that a lot of the people that I was meeting, they had my name down. They knew that they just had to look for the teal. They knew exactly how to find me, what my name was, where I was from, all that kind of stuff, because I just focused on meeting people and, again, learning everything I could from them.
So we kind of spent time on the past couple episodes walking through the actual, viewers know the format of the show and the different rounds, but the actual behind the scenes process. Since you mentioned knowing everybody's names, if I'm correct, the go-to guy who has been there from the beginning, who gives you the marching orders right away is
I already know who you're
Patrick
talking
Lynn,
about.
Right?
Absolutely.
So
Patrick.
This guy seems like just a legend in the Idolverse. I mean, everybody knows who he is. He's been there from the beginning, and all these people.
You should have seen the mentors walking in. Patrick! Oh my gosh. God. And Ruben Studdard just walks in, and like half the people that I'm with, contestants, don't even know who he is. And me being a giant American Idol fan, Ruben Studdard walks in the door and goes straight over to Patrick, and they're hugging it out, taking photos. And I'm like, do you guys know who that is? And they're like, no, who is that? I'm like, you don't know who Ruben Studdard is?
Wow.
But yeah, it was wild. And Patrick is the guy. I actually made so many jokes with him about like him making the big bucks. And he was like, I make the medium bucks. And I was
like,
my
okay. God. Yeah.
Okay, Patrick.
I mean, I don't know. I just thought about that because knowing everything about I try to know everything about what happens on air and off air. And I kind of know my list of producers, and I mean, I couldn't name every one of them, but obviously I know about, I said in the first episode, I think it's so cool. I don't know if you got to know Megan, who's the showrunner, but what I think is so cool is that she started on Ruben's season in the live shows as like a runner or a PA, and is now running the whole thing in its 20th anniversary season. I just think that's so cool. That. Yeah. I mean, her and Patrick, that's really rad.
We call her the fourth judge.
Really?
She is very, very hands-on, and the show runs immaculately because of her. She is so, so, so good at her job. I mean, it's very clear as to why she's in that role. She does things very, very well and runs everything a very tight ship. But, she also is really good at delegating to the people under her and like checking in on all the other producers and the contestant managers. And they're all very connected. They've all got their heads and their assistants and their, lower levels. I mean, the hierarchy is insane. There are tons and tons and tons of people that work on the show, but Megan specifically, she is so good at her job. I mean, we literally called her the fourth judge because she's the one that knows everything about every single contestant. She's kind of setting things up behind the scenes. And I think that now this is totally just me, I have no proof that this is how it happens, but when we do rehearsals and things like that, she's usually always in them and always, taking notes and things like that. So in my head, we all call her the fourth judge because what she sees before the judges see, I think, is her like preliminarily making the decisions, if that makes sense. So she's kind of like, okay, so I already saw it. So I have this like first thought, and then you guys now see it too. And then now we can kind of like put our heads together and see what what the next step is for this specific person. So
Right. Well, I imagine, and I've over the years, when you watch every episode of Hollywood Week, you kind of catch the moments where you see the staff on screen. I imagine that
yep,
in the moments, and I'll ask you in a minute how far you got, but the different rounds, she's there on the judges' platform talking with them as they're
a lot,
deliberating. So she
tons.
could be the fourth
Yeah,
judge, but we're not gonna reveal anything. We don't know
exactly.
anything. So
Exactly. That's entirely hearsay, but I mean,
yes.
she has the power to do that because she knows everything about everything that goes on there. And I think that she's the perfect person for that too. And not just specifically like her, but like her role is the perfect person for that because like I said, she is kind of that middleman between like the judges and all of that and the contestant managers and the executive producers that, and the music directors and all of that stuff. So she gets like I just think that every person talks about each contestant and they all say, I had this experience with this contestant. The other team says, I had this experience. And then, it all combines to that head person who is Megan. And she gets to make those decisions of like, is this somebody that is going to do well on this show or somebody that, maybe should try again next year or those kinds of things. And she's also really great about giving feedback. My first audition in front of the judges, at the end of my song in rehearsal, she was like, do you think that's big enough? And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, I think that just the ending needs to be bigger. Like, I think you can do bigger. And I was like, okay, I'll do bigger. I was like, great,
Yeah.
great. I got it. I'll make it bigger. So, I mean, I love that she was willing to be like, you need more, like give more because you can give more. So, that's what you need to do. Or the Nancy, who's the music director too, she is also incredible with that. I always was asking her like, well, I'm thinking about doing it this way or this way. What do you think? And she would say, well, this way sounds more like the style you're trying to put across, or, well, or this one sounds maybe more bold or less acoustic, those kinds of things. She would like, they're really good about giving those kinds of, or those pieces of advice and pieces of feedback.
Right. I mean, I think that like why Megan is such the perfect person to run this show is that I'd imagine other than Patrick and maybe a few of the other people, have been there the
Seasoned.
longest.
Yep.
And so, like it's one thing to have a TV producer who may have been in the industry but not worked on this particular show. And
Yep.
also to start as like a runner where you're actually having like she talks about I've read interviews with her where she talks about being like friends and like hanging out with contestants. So like she used to be so close to like I imagine the contestants behind the scenes and really getting to see what
Yep.
it's like for them that 20 years later, having kind of worked her way up and now also
Yeah.
understanding the television perspective, she's there to do her job, but she also probably understands what it is like emotionally to be a contestant. And I guess, navigating, of course, doing your job and having to
Yeah.
help make cuts is tough. But, to see every angle of that show for 2 decades, I mean,
Yeah.
that's gotta add for it's gotta make for
Yeah.
a really good position to be in.
And just like you said, with like, coming up with who's going to be cut and those kinds of things, like she is that, all seeing eye of like, how are they as a person? Also, can they handle this process going forward? Because she's seen what it can do to people, good and bad. And
Right.
so I feel like, with her being so experienced in every single, you know, angle, like you said, every single angle of it, she's very, very good at deciding, who she thinks is going to be or is going to have longevity in the show.
So you mentioned Ruben Studdard, and I think that one cool thing about being a part of season 20 is that you had these alumni mentors for Hollywood Week. Now, we didn't really get to see a lot of it on the actual episode.
Right.
And since you weren't aired, who was your mentor?
So actually the one part they did show me a lot, like they showed me, but not my singing. And
Mm-hmm.
one part that I was glad they showed actually is when Lauren Elena walked in. The next scene right after that, like they show her and then they flip to me and my face going like
Oh,
like so wide. Yeah. And it was such a genuine reaction. It was like the Lauren Elena who was in our position, who is this huge country star now and is doing exactly what she wants to do. She's representing herself exactly the way she wants to and how she is as a person, is standing right in front of me and is about to give me advice about how I could do the same thing. Like that was, this crazy, crazy moment. But to short form answer your question, Lauren Elena was our
Yes.
celebrity mentor.
I was wondering if it was going to be her or Haley because you are country, but you're also soul. So I'm thinking she mentioned the soul, she mentored the soul genre. So I was kind of
Yes.
between those two.
Yeah, exactly. And it was kind of I was a little bit jealous of the pop round or the pop section
Hmm.
because they got Jordan Sparks
Right.
and Jordan Sparks sang to them.
One step at a
And
time.
I could
Yeah.
only imagine
Oh,
her singing to me, like that would have been crazy. And actually, 3 days before this, this is super wild. 3 days before Hollywood Week happened, I had posted a picture about me about to graduate and all that stuff. And in my caption, I had said, like, can't wait to talk about like future opportunities that are coming up, whatever, like one step at a time, something like that.
oh,
And so I said that, and she commented and liked on my photo. Like she liked my photo and commented and was like, congratulations and whatever. And so then
wow.
after that, and I found out she was one of the mentors. I'm like, man, I should have been in the pop genre, but
Oh,
but but I don't fit there, so it wouldn't have been a good fit. But I just, I love Lauren Elena, but Jordan Sparks had just commented on my Instagram photo, and I thought that was kind of crazy. So
well, you walked away with a mentoring session and an Instagram like and comment. So,
exactly, yeah,
Okay, so what's that experience like working with her? I know that if I'm correct, not every contestant actually got like a full-on mentoring session. Were
right.
you one of the lucky ones, or did you not get to talk to
No,
her?
so the ones that did get to talk to her were the ones that got aired. It was Noah Thompson who got to speak to her, Riley Madison, and Luke. I forget his last name, but Luke the voice, the one.
Oh my
Um,
God, the one
yes,
I forgot he actually made it. I was like, I thought he got cut in auditions. That was crazy to
yeah.
watch.
So exactly, yeah, and I forget his last name, like I said, but it was him. So those three, they got to have one-on-one sessions with her talking. But again, remember I had been talking about this bit at the beginning. I was soaking in every single bit of information that I could. So they're sitting right behind me, and I'm not speaking to anybody in front of me. I am dead on, just like staring, and people are like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm listening." They're behind me, and I just am in the zone, trying to take in every single bit of information. And for her, when she was talking to Riley, y'all saw it on the show. She says, Riley starts crying and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I cried when I met Carrie Underwood. So like this is kind of crazy that you're crying when you're meeting me." And I was like, "Oh my God, that's me. That's me. I would have cried when I saw her, when I would have saw her or Carrie Underwood, I would have freaked out." Carrie Underwood's like the reason why I do what I do. So it's just, it was wild. And then now I just found out that she's mentoring the top five,
Yes.
and I'm like, are you kidding me?
Oh.
So sad, but it's okay. It's all right.
Well,
I'll get my shot with her.
it's almost like, so when I think about it, you did get a mentoring session. You weren't necessarily next to her on camera, but because you were
Yeah.
soaking everything in, and who knows how many of the other contestants were like that, but I mean, you probably picked up the same advice she was giving to Noah, Riley, and Luke. I mean, it's funny. I was just
Absolutely.
thinking, I can't help but think that although I don't know if they aired it, if she's talking to Luke, she's probably mentioning, I sang with Scotty and he sounded like this. So now it's kind of,
Oh
probably
yeah.
felt similar for
Oh yeah,
her.
absolutely. And for him, actually, these are just little pieces of advice, which, not trying to like share their whole story, but you got to see it on TV, so this is stuff I can talk about. But with him, he actually was going to sing a song by the same artist that he sang for his first judges round, and she
Mm,
told him, it would be a good idea for you to show them something different and show them in a different song, different artist, different style, what you could bring to it, or like what you could do. So you can still do your same, obviously he can't control his low voice, but like you can still do your same like range where you are, and how you sing it, but maybe a different song and bring like a different taste to their mouths, that kind of thing. And I took that very much, I took that to heart for myself, because I sing country soul music, but that doesn't mean that I always sing country songs or
mm-hmm.
soul songs. My sets, my full band sets, are very much so a blend of all of them. And my upcoming show, I'm singing like a full on like electronic pop song, but we're doing it in a country soul way. So you would
Mm.
never expect it to be done that way. But it's just, now I'm starting to focus in on songs that showcase what I do rather than songs that showcase what that artist does.
Right, right. I know that some of the mentoring happened like before Genre Challenge filming began, and other times they had you do that while they were filming other people singing. What was it
Uh-huh.
like for you?
So for us, we were actually the first group
Oh,
that
okay.
got the like mentoring sessions and things, which I was very lucky because I got to take in the advice that we were getting and then go perform rather than, like the opposite. But also, like I said, I was kind of the first group. So I got to take in all that information, like sit on it for a while, watch a couple of other people perform, take in that kind of stuff and then go and do it. And with Genre Round, I also got lucky in being one of this, or I think it was 2 days and I was the second day. So I got extra time to kind of sit back, and other people didn't like that because they had to sit and wait. But for me, with my strategy of just like soaking up every single thing that I could, I was like, yeah, give me as many days as I can. Like I'll take all the days to
Hmm.
to sit and wait and listen.
So I have a question because everybody knows about the whole platinum ticket thing,
Right.
and it was first of all, how much I imagine that because you auditioned early, you left before you knew about because Jay was in Austin, right? Jay got the ticket in Austin.
I actually have a very interesting story about Jay getting his platinum ticket.
Ooh,
Um,
okay.
so we knew about the platinum tickets. Obviously, like, they had told us what was going to happen before all the auditions started. I was on the last day of auditions and it had still not been given out. So I was kind of like, okay, this is the last day. Like, here we go. And of course, I went in, I did not get the platinum ticket, but I did get a gold one. And as I'm walking out, as soon as you walk out of the room, I was sprinting, running, bawling my eyes out, doing the whole thing. I collapsed with my sister and gave her a giant hug. And, we had our like post interview. And then right after that, you're getting moved on to like the next station. Like there's a couple things you got to do once you get a ticket. And so once I got my ticket, I did my post interview, and then they're like, okay, grab your purse, which was in the holding room right before you go into the audition. And then, come with me. And so on my way to my purse, I see Jay, and he is
Ooh.
like right about to go in. Like he's next. And I just stopped and I just said, they told me that they wanted to feel it. And I was like, I didn't make them feel it as much as I could have. And I said, they're looking for emotional connection. So go in there and make them feel it. That's exact words of what I said. Go in there, make them feel it, and you got this. And then he walks out with the platinum ticket. And I'm like,
Oh,
if
wow.
only I could have given myself that same advice right before I went in. Who knows what would have happened? But I was so thrilled for him. Obviously, y'all all saw it. He did it all himself. He is that talented. But it was just so cool that like I gave him a little piece of advice and was just like, hey, in my last 20 minutes of experience, this is what they told me that they're looking for, and this is what I was lacking. Thank God they still gave me an opportunity, but what I was lacking could be the piece of information that you need. And so I just wanted to, and I didn't even know him. I did not even know him. I mean, we had spent days together, and it was kind of funny. People actually said about me and Jay that both of us were kind of like dark horses. Like
Mm.
everyone else is singing and singing and singing and showing off and singing covers and let's harmonize and let's blah blah blah, let's blah blah blah. And Jay and I were both like silent, focused, sitting in our spaces, listening to our songs, listening to the people around us, like that kind of thing. But we weren't showing off. We weren't like singing all the time. I was trying to conserve my voice since I knew I was going to be on the last day. Actually, there were a couple of people who went right after me who that was their downfall, was that they had been singing all week. So by the time they got to sing for the judges, their voices were dead. I mean,
Hmm.
and then, once you go back to the hotel at the end of the night, that's all you want to do is sit around the pool and sing with everybody. But I went to bed, and other people were sitting at the pool until 2 a.m. And so things like that, where like after the fact, people told me, oh my gosh, yeah, like you and Jay, I could see you guys both like being silent. We wanted to know how you were. Like we wanted to know if you could sing because you weren't showing us if you could sing or not. And then of course he gets the platinum ticket because he was that good and he was just trying to like conserve it and keep it inside. And so I was so proud of him, and he is just such a genuine person. He's awesome.
Mm. Well, so before we go back to Hollywood, I think I just made a discovery because I don't know if I realized this. It sounds like so it's not like okay, we know who's singing on day one, day two, and day three. You show up day one and sit through filming for 2 days, and then on day three you finally get to sing.
Well, so that's how it worked for me. But other days they showed up and they were, that first day or
Oh,
that
so they're
second day
lucky.
of
Yeah.
performance. Yeah, exactly. And so I got that like third day, which I had been sick, like I said. So I was
Right.
thankful to be on the third day, whereas other people were like, get it over with. I was kind of like, no, I'll wait. I
Right.
need all the time I can get. Um, And not like obviously I wasn't sick while I was there, but I had just gotten over it. And so I was trying to just like make sure I was back at 100% vocal capacity, because just like sitting around, sleeping all the time or like being sick, taking antibiotics, like whatever it is that you're doing, it just dries out your throat. And also I hadn't been practicing that much since I had been sick. So I was really nervous and like about that, just about like vocal capacity. And I was thankful to be able to wait. But yeah, like you said, some people, they show up and they're on day 1 or day 2. I was on day 3.
Mm-hmm.
And usually there's like the first day is all filming, so that we can get all that extra stuff. Like if you saw the boat cruise coming in and we're all like dancing by the dock and stuff like that, that happened on day 2. We filmed it all on day 2 during like a break, where like people weren't really auditioning. And so most people got to be a part of that. But other people were in like music rehearsals and things like that. So not everyone was in that shot. But they space it out. So they've got time they film this much and they use this much. So,
Right,
that's
right.
all the time.
So, well, the reason I asked about the platinum ticket is because now that you're in Hollywood Week, part of the whole thing is they're going to put Jay, Hunter Girl, and Kennedy, who we obviously know is not there anymore, but they're going to put them up in the balcony so that they sort
Right.
of have that advantage of watching. Now, I mean, it doesn't sound like that much different than like almost what you got to do, because having been a day 2 contestant, you got to get a whole day of taking notes and seeing what you were up against. But did you
Yeah.
feel as a contestant, I mean, I don't know how much you really noticed or if it kind of faded out of your memory that you had these 3 people that were like the judges' picks or whatever. How did that affect you? Were you thinking about it at all, or did it not really play into how you were feeling during the filming process?
It was a little bit of both. To be honest, at first it didn't really bother me at all. I knew that like those people must have had just awesome auditions and were, setting the bar really high. And so I was like, great for them. I want to show them why I deserve that. And so that was kind of like a motivation for me, was like, I didn't get a platinum ticket and I'm one of hundreds that didn't. So I need to work that much harder to show them why, they could have seen that same starfire in me. And that was kind of like the first half of it. And then the second half of it was really confusing for all of us contestants, because we knew that they were up in the balcony with clipboards with our names and our faces and taking notes. And they kept saying things like, oh, the platinum ticket holders are going to be strategizing. And, in our heads, we're like, what can you strategize? Like,
Right.
what in this competition requires a strategy to, like take notes on your other contestants and stuff like that? Because in previous years, nothing of that sort had ever happened. So I'm thinking, like the judges or the producers are going to put the next couple of things together. So there's no reason for these people to be like taking notes and strategizing. But what I then learned is that they were going to be able to use that information to pick their own duet partners. And so that made
Right.
sense. But that like middle section where we were kind of like, why are they taking notes on us? And
Right.
like that kind of thing, it wasn't necessarily intimidating, because I knew that they weren't going to have the power to kick me off.
Right.
So there was that where I was like relieved a little bit that I knew that whatever they were doing wasn't going to eliminate me. But I also knew that whatever they were doing could potentially, like put me a little bit further in the competition, or like get me a little bit more of exposure with the judges. And, that certainly happened with a couple of their duet partners who were kind of like flying under the radar, like doing great jobs, but not necessarily the stars front and center, those kinds of people. But yet the duet partners or the platinum ticket holders got to pick them. And then all of a sudden the judges are like, oh, okay, well, this person saw some kind of starlight in, this person that we were kind of like, okay on. So they're getting an opportunity. And I was glad that I didn't get picked as one of their partners at first, but then afterwards I was like, man, I really wish I would have, because
Mm.
at first I thought that they were going to be picking in terms of competing against that person, and that's where I was like, oh, I don't want to be picked, because I don't want the judges to look at us and be like, well, this person's clearly better than this one, or,
Right.
that kind of thing. I was looking for a collaborative type of duet situation. And then afterwards, I kind of wished that I would have gotten picked by them, because I knew that we could have created something so awesome. And that would have given me like a little bit more of a push in front of the judges, I feel like, rather than being where I was and having to show them, like even more, like even further what I could do past the last time. Like I said, I was competing against my last round, whereas these people, they didn't even have a last round.
Right.
Obviously, they were competing against their, star power first time. So I'm sure that that came with its own intimidations for them.
And I have to say, as a viewer, it was actually a pretty good twist because, I mean, what I had been hearing, like, I heard people say, like, it wasn't, like, maybe it was a little more hyped up in terms of, like, well, okay, well, they're skipping around, but, like, how much does it, like, if they're so good, isn't it obvious that they're going to make 24? Maybe as we've seen most of them, and if Kennedy were here, probably
Just
would have too,
right.
like, they all made it far. But then when they added the twist of them picking the duet partners, I'm kind of like, now it makes sense. And I like that they waited to tell us because now I'm actually really excited to watch the duet round because I genuinely want to know. And they left it as a cliffhanger.
Yeah,
They didn't tell you right away who Jay and Hunter Girl and Kennedy were picking.
exactly.
So back to genre challenge. So you're on day 2, but early. So kind of similar to what happened in your audition. Any
Yeah,
other, well, I guess if you just want to tell us like who's in your line, but any other like standouts that we would know from your soul line?
absolutely. Absolutely. So, I was in a line with Noah Thompson, actually,
Mm-hmm.
who he went right after me. And the person that went right before me was Jade Flores.
Mm-hmm.
And Jade had actually been on 2 seasons ago. And so this was her second time on Idol, and her second season. And it had been split up 2 seasons in between. And she was awesome. She was incredible. And she went right before me. And that was so nerve wracking because she hit this phenomenal zero imperfections performance of how great thou art, Carrie Underwood's version. And so she knocks them dead, 3 judges stand up type of performance, and then I gotta go. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm like, I normally that stuff doesn't bother me at all, but also normally the person in front of me doesn't hit an absolutely flawless performance that I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm shaking now. And so when I went out there, I was like, okay, I know what I got to prove. In all my interviews, I had been telling all the producers and things like my goal in this performance is to make Katy Perry feel it because that was what she said. She said, I didn't emotionally feel it. I didn't connect it. And the other people, they wanted to see me not thinking about it so much. And so that was my goal. And the second that I started singing and the first 10 seconds of my performance, and then the entire rest of the performance, Katy Perry was going like this, shaking her head up and down, up and down,
Nice.
just saying yes, you got it. Like, and that was my saving grace. It was like when she started shaking her head up and down at me like, yes, you're doing great, that in my head put so many nerves out because I was like, I did it. I did exactly what she wanted. Regardless of if I make it on in the next round, I did what she was looking for, and she can see that I can make the corrections. And as soon as I walked off stage in my post interview, I wasn't crying. I was totally fine. I didn't feel great about my performance. I felt like I had maybe given like a 75% performance, but I felt so good that I had given Katy Perry what she had been looking for from the beginning. And so I just busted into tears, and
Uh,
they're like, oh, like, how do you feel? And I'm like, I promise I'm actually happy. But,
yeah.
I'm crying because I'm just so glad that I made her proud and I did what, she asked of me. And that was just one of those other, like, all the tension builds up, builds up, builds up. And then I see her shaking her head like I did the right thing. And that's when it just like the tension released. And I was like, you did it. You did a good job.
And what's your song choice for genre challenge?
So for genre challenge, I took a risk and I did a duet song as a solo, actually. And
Ooh.
I did "Just a Fool" by Christina Aguilera and Blake
Ooh.
Shelton.
Good song.
Yeah, so I liked that one because I felt like it was right in my range. It actually was the song that I really connected to emotionally. I had kind of like a backstory in my head, of it, and a time in my life that I used that song to kind of get through. And so that was where I feel like I had missed out on my first round with them, is that I picked a song that I thought I sounded really good singing and that I thought like my voice would shine through, but I didn't pick a song where I was like, I needed this song at a part in my life. And that's why it's so important that I show you guys. Whereas this round, I picked one where I was like, I need to share this with you. I need to share this song, my voice, my story, all of these things wrapped into one.
Mm-hmm. And you made Katy Perry feel it. There you go,
I
right?
did. I did.
And
Yes.
if I'm correct, that duet solo choice was wonderfully ironic because you then moved on to the duets round. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, and that was another thing. And when I was deciding is I was like, well, and I didn't know how duet round would work. So I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to pick my own song or if they were going to give us a list or those things. So when I was working with like one of my mentors just from home about, genre challenge and stuff, I was like, okay, well, do you think it's a mistake doing a duet song as a solo and then potentially moving into duet round where like I could use that song? But then thankfully I didn't do that because I didn't realize that I wasn't going to be able to choose the song that I did in duets. Like I was going to be able to choose the song, but from a group of songs, not necessarily like, oh, I love this whatever song. I just want to do it. Um, so I'm glad I didn't do that, and I stayed true to what my vision was, and it worked out. And then the other thing is they wanted you to kind of tell them like why you were auditioning or why you were singing for them and that kind of stuff. And this one, my line to go in was, I'm going to tell you guys a story about a time I was just a fool. And then I just started singing songs. So it was like, I wanted them to know that I connected with the song before Katy Perry decided whether she connected with it or not. It was like, I connect with this rather than just singing a song where I sound good. It was a song that meant something to me.
Right. And it paid off.
Yes.
So correct me if I'm wrong, I'm guessing this is how it worked. So after you film Genre Challenge, and I'm guessing that's only 2 days and you're the second of the two. So at the end of day 2, first of all, you're probably in the audience, right? Just like you've already made up, but you're watching everybody else go. And then they film the part where they tell you guys about duets and the platinum tickets picking their partners. And then is that the same night that they take you to the holding room to film the part where they say, we've picked your partners, and they assign you?
About 10 minutes after.
Uh-huh.
So it's literally, the platinum people pick their partners right in front of us. That was so many P's right there. The platinum people pick their partners.
Yes.
And then after that, we went into that holding room and we waited for the judges. And then about 10 minutes later, they all came in and we got our duet partners. We got on the bus, went straight back to the hotel, and immediately started rehearsals. And you couldn't go to bed until you had gone through all the checks of things you had to do. Like, first you get there and you get your partner, you sit down in the hotel, they tell you how it's going to go. And this is like same night as Genre Round. So like no sleep, no nothing, straight. And I told you I was getting up at 3:30 in the morning. So 3:30 in the morning, all the way now till it's midnight at this point. And they tell you, you have to create a team name. You have to pick a song through this list of 40 songs. You pick a song, create a team name. You have to then create an arrangement for your song before you can go into a vocal coaching room. Then you go into a vocal coaching room with your rehearsal. And then after that, then you have to check back in with the people at the front, like with the music director and Patrick, who were kind of facilitating different things, like the group names, and then also what your picks for the next round were going to be. Had you made it to the next round, they had to make sure some songs had gotten cleared and things like that. So there were a lot of checkpoints that you had to make it through before you were allowed to go to bed. And in the midst of all of that, you're learning a song, arranging it, performing it, rehearsing it over and over and over again, learning lyrics, doing all of that stuff. And then you're going to perform the next day.
And who was your duet partner?
I was paired with Maurice.
I liked him. He was on the post-Oscar show, so I guess he wasn't as like prominent. And then I don't know if they aired him after the audition, but I liked him. I actually had him in my list, I think, for who I would have wanted in the 24 at first.
Oh, really? Yeah, he's really cool. He was in my line too. So he was in my like Genre Round line. And in that line, Jade was the only person who delivered a performance that was absolutely getting her through. Every other person in our line was a maybe. And so I think personally that they paired me with Maurice because both of us were kind of like dice rolls. It was like, well, we'll see, what you can do in the next round. And we're going to put you guys together too, to see, how you guys can do it. I was glad to be paired with him, but also like kind of hoping to be paired with a girl. Just wanted to be paired with a girl because of harmonies, because that's like my thing is harmonies. But also I really liked having him because I had gotten to know him the past few days before that and had become really good friends with him. And we were calling him Big Mo. I mean, because he's really short and we were calling him Big Mo, and I'm really tall. And so it was funny. When we got paired together, our team name was Tall and Small.
That would have been interesting
Yeah.
television, but we didn't get to see it.
Again, exactly. And exactly. It would have been really interesting because it was very, yeah, the height difference was clear. But
And what was the song?
um, interesting enough, we actually chose Old Town Road.
Really? I didn't even know that was an option. I don't know if any duets
No one
aired with
else
that
sing it.
song. Hmm.
Nope, because no one else picked it. There was 40 songs and only four people, like four groups could do each song, and no
Hmm.
one else picked the song that we picked, which we took a humongous risk with. Old Town Road, first of all, just the song in itself is not like a vocally heavy song. So
Right.
that was a risk. And also, no one else was picking it, and probably for good reason. But, then we decided, like, let's take it, do what we can with it, make it ours, and show them why. I mean, the producers, right before you go into Duet Round, they actually were talking to us about it, and they were like, we worked really hard to make this list of songs for you guys really fun and give you guys a lot of options. And so in our heads, well, first of all, we struggled when we got to the song list because I actually used to be a karaoke hostess. So I know like every song in the world. I am a music encyclopedia. I mean, you sing a couple of lines and I probably know the song. And he did not know that many songs that were on the list. And so we were kind of narrowing down to like five. And then
Mm.
when it was five, it was like three of them he didn't know the words at all, and two of them he knew the words, all of them. So I was like, okay, now we're down to like two. And so then it was Old Town Road and a different one. And he's a busker, like he sings on the street. And so he knew Old Town Road and he was like, I play this one all the time. And so when he was like, I play this one all the time, in my head, I was like, let's do it. You know that one? You're great. Like I can learn it. And I already knew the songs, but I didn't know the lyrics that well. And so we did that one. And honestly, our arrangement was really cool, but I don't think we were very confident in it. And once we got into the rehearsal room with the vocal coach, that changed a lot. He was like, don't come in here with something cool and then doubt yourselves. And we were like, okay, all right, like you're right, you're right. We shouldn't have done that. And so after that, we started to get it together and make it a lot more, I don't know, fine tuned, I'll say.
What I know we've seen on the show some of the vocal coaches in different clips and things. Who was your vocal coach?
Nick Cooper. I got extremely lucky. He was incredible. I actually would go so far to, I hope he hears this. I really hope he does. I would literally go so far to say that he is the reason that I was meant to be on American Idol.
Really?
I I tell people that all the time. I tell people that I think my entire experience on Idol was to meet that man. He changed my life. And that it's like actually it makes me emotional even just talking about it right now, which is kind of crazy, but just because like he seriously did, with just words, he made so much of a difference in my career going forward and also just my life. I mean, when I was talking about earlier, soaking up information that he was giving to other people, right before our duet round, he came into the holding room, like the on camera holding room, and got every person that he was mentoring and sat us in a circle. And he's like, look around. Do you see any other vocal coaches in here? And there were no other vocal coaches anywhere to be found. And he's like, there's a reason why I'm in here right now, like trying to talk to you guys, trying to get in your heads now so that when you go out there, you know what you're doing. And so he just starts going through person by person and starts saying, this is what you need to work on. This is what you need to work on. This is what you need to work on. And it wasn't like, here's all the things you're doing wrong. It's here's what I see in you. And here's how you could be so much better if you make these little tweaks. And now, let me just tell you, he got like four people in the row and I'm ugly crying. Okay. He didn't even talk about me yet. And I'm ugly crying because of how many things he was saying. There was one girl who was so talented, and I won't mention, names or anything, but she was so talented. And, she had been, making a couple excuses for reasons why her performance wasn't like on par as it usually would have been. And, all of us knew that she was flawless. And so when she was kind of doubting herself, he was like, why are you making excuses for yourself? If you make excuses for yourself, the judges are going to excuse you from the competition. And I was like, that is such a good way to just look at life too. Like if you make excuses for why you're not doing things to the level that you should be doing them, instead of just like trying and just keeping yourself to that standard, then other people are also going to see that and they're going to excuse you from, the running of a lot of things. And so that's just one piece of information. But when he got to me, I had already been bawling and I just bawled even more because he was talking to me about, how he saw when I first walked into the room. And this is a really cool moment that I actually voice memoed. Like I have on recording him saying these things. But he was like, when you walked into the room, you had the whole look. You had your outfit, you had your hair, you had your, earrings, you had your shoes. Everything was to a T, exactly you. You had it down, you knew who you were. But then you started singing and you started overanalyzing, and I could tell that you were in your head trying to think about how to make it to a T perfect. And he was like, if you just stop thinking about it and you just do it because you love it. I mean, he said, don't perform to get to the next round. Don't perform to make them like you. Don't perform because you think you owe them something, or you think that like they, need to hear this one thing and they're going to like you, all of that. He was like, perform because you love it. Perform because God gave you a gift and you love sharing it with the world. And so when I stepped onto that stage, I even told all the, interviews previously, before and after the performance, I told them, I was like, my goal in this performance is to go out there and have so much fun that they know why I love performing, because I had been trying to show them why they should like me and why I'm a good singer. But once he told me this, I was like, oh my gosh, like, why have I not been just showing them how much I love to sing, So that really just, it changed everything for me. And that is like three little tiny pieces of information that he gave me over, multiple days. And so, I mean, I could go on and on and on, but yeah, he seriously changed my life.
And you mentioned that you made an effort to, get all the staff names down. I imagine that for the vocal coaches and the music team, that is incredibly beneficial to you because, I mean, it's one thing to know TV producers, but you're an artist, to know vocal coaches and musicians. I mean, I don't know how much interaction you have
Yeah.
with Chris Pooley. Like, these guys are people that are in
And
your game.
he had just gotten off of Usher's residency and was talking about being on Beyonce's residency.
Wait, is
And
that
so
Chris or
when you're
Nick?
Nick.
Nick,
And
uh-huh.
so, yeah, when your vocal coach is telling you, oh, yeah, actually, this is another crazy thing. So, to my partner, he was giving him advice to sing like a child. And at first, we were like, what do you mean sing like a child? And he was like, I want you to practice singing like a young child, because if you sing like a child, you're not going to sound perfect. And you need to start like trying to get out of your head, just exercises to kind of get out of your head. And then he's like, yeah, I make Usher do this all the time. And it's like, oh my gosh, like these things, like you're
Right.
doing this to me and you're also doing this with Usher. And the reason, I can't necessarily tell you what his reasoning was for making us do that, but another thing that I was just in a write the other day and I was telling them about this, which I tell people all the time about little pieces of information that Nick Cooper left with me. But we're going through the song and we're missing this next line. We can't think of it. We can't think of it. And I just keep telling him, I'm like, well, I got this really great advice from this vocal coach that we need to just read it like a poem. Like, let's just go read it like a poem. In our rehearsal session, he made us read the song more than he made us sing the song, because he wanted us to get the cadence down and get like the meaning down and all of those things, rather than focusing on the singing, because there's a
Mhm.
lot of things that go into it that aren't the singing that are really important.
Wow. I mean, you must have left it all out on stage after that. I mean, tell me about the reaction in the room with this performance, what the judges had to say with Old Town
So
Road.
yeah, so I like I said, I was really nervous about like how they were going to perceive it, because it was Old Town Road.
Yeah.
And during the rehearsal, Megan was, grooving, she loved it, whatever, whatever. During the actual performance, I don't think the judges loved it as much as we were hoping for them to love it. They were very much so looking for us to sing like, our Whitney Houston drop dead ballad. And almost every single other duet sang a ballad rather than us and like two other people. And so when it got to us, we were like, oh my gosh, yeah, they've been hearing ballads all day. Like, we're going to sing an upbeat song. And I don't think that's what they wanted. I think they wanted us to sing something, very meticulous and technical. And I mean, I'd been trained that way. So like I could do that if I wanted to. but Maurice is a street performer and is gritty and raw talent. And so I kind of was like, okay, cool, let's both do like focus in on this like gritty raw talent thing and make it our own. So instead of doing harmonies all over the place, we were doing like call and response type of things. And so like we weren't necessarily both singing at the same time all the times. Like we were kind of flipping back and forth and doing a lot of cool things. But they really wanted us to have like this show stopping performance. And so at the end, Katie said to me, Christiana, I was really hoping for these magic moments that I saw yesterday. And that was exactly what she said. And and I give you these things in exact words because I replay them quite often in my head. But that's what she said to me was, I was hoping for these magic moments that we saw yesterday. And she said, and I know they're in there. And I responded and I was like, they are, because like I want her to know that, I could show her more. And there were a couple of times during that performance where I saw her kind of go like, okay. And I guess that just wasn't enough because I wasn't hitting these giant notes. I was really, doing this fun, energetic performance. And, a lot of people don't get a chance to kind of like talk back to the judges and talk back in the sense of like, just tell them what you're thinking after they give your feedback. But I kind of used that as my last chance. And so I told her straight up when she said that to me, I was like, I really wanted to show you something fun. I really wanted to do something where I shook out my nerves because the last couple of times I had been shaking, I'd been stiff. And so I was like, I wanted to shake out my nerves and have fun and show you guys that like I can do, this and not be so stiff. And she said something like, well, I would have liked a fun type of performance later on in the competition. And in my head, I was kind of like, I think it gets more difficult to do a fun type of performance later on in the competition. But also this was Hollywood week where they were really, really testing us. And so, I probably should have been a little bit more, like standout focused, I guess. That's like kind of the way to put it. I was more focused on showing them how much fun I was having and showing them that like I could do this, no nerves, and that I'm a performer. And then I kind of dropped my like technicality, powerhouse, belt their faces off, that kind of thing. And, it was like the first few, I was focused too much on the music, not on the emotions. And then the next one, I was like, okay, I'm focused on the emotions and having fun and not so much the technicality of the singing. So I mean, I actually think that was one of my better performances. It just wasn't what they were looking for necessarily. And they gave kind of the same critiques to him as well. So unfortunately, our time, both of us, ended at Duet Round, but not for any other reason for than exactly how it was supposed to end. So I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I'm just going to mention, because you talked about Katie, anything from Luke or Lionel in particular that you want to mention that they talked about?
Unfortunately, they did not speak to us during Duet Round. It was kind of like a, each judge kind of like head over that that group. And so Katie kind of took the lead with us and gave us our critiques and then gave us the final judgment, and that was that. So the other two didn't necessarily give us any critiques, just kind of some looks.
I imagine that's for time, that the only one judge per duet speaks.
Exactly. That's kind of what I thought too, just because the past few times and past few rounds, they'd been splitting them up by days. And this one, it was all duets one day, and that was it.
So I have two questions after hearing about duets. One is, do you think, and this applies to all the rounds of Hollywood, it could also apply to the auditions, do you think there's a strategy behind the order of who goes? Because it's obviously not like, okay, who wants to go first? They craft who's going first, who's going last, to perhaps create this sort of standout moment at the end, or the way to kind of kick off the round. Do you think that that's how it works as far as picking the order?
I do. However, it's very interesting that you asked that, actually, because our duet was supposed to be at 7:30 that night, and we ended up going at 11 a.m.
Really?
And they switched us like 2 or 3 rounds or 2 or 3 performances before we were supposed to go. And so, I mean, like I said, I was expecting to be later in the day around like 7:30 just because of what number we were. And then they all of a sudden said, oh, you guys are actually going to go now. And, so in my head, again, they have their strategies behind everything and how they do it, and it's all set up the exact perfect way. So in my head, what happened is, well, kind of what I was hoping the case was that they did have like 7 duets, and then I mean 7 ballad duets and very slow songs. And I thought maybe that they were kind of like switching us up because we were an upbeat, fun one. However, if that was their intention, I think it didn't work out well because
Mm,
the judges had gotten so used to hearing these like big ballads and stuff. And 2 of the platinum ticket winners had also gone before us. And so we had gotten to see those. And I was kind of upset because I was like, they just went and then now we got to go, you know? And so, of course, they had like these super high expectations for them. And then that only made the expectations higher for us. But I also, you know, everything that happened and the way that it all worked out, it was, again, just such a learning experience that I took away every single thing I could from it. And you know, if it ever happens again, awesome. I feel like I know how to navigate it a little bit better, but also just other scenarios that are, you know, even somewhat similar. I know how to navigate this with that much more information, you know, in my arsenal.
gotcha. Um, the other thing I'm thinking about is, as a contestant, you'd have the best answer to this. But in my mind, they've been doing duets for the past 3 seasons, which is a pretty big shakeup considering that so much of the show was all about Hollywood Week and the group
Group
round and the
round.
drama that would ensue from that. In my mind, I'm thinking it might actually be easier for you guys because A, you're only having to work with one other person than 3, 4, maybe 5. And B, you have more of a chance to stand out because they're not trying to, stick out against 4 other people. Am I in the ballpark of how you feel, or do you have a different take?
Yeah, I absolutely think that you're right. And I think that that actually is probably why they switched it, just because it was so controversial with, you know, like one person having to stand out against 4 others, and then maybe like one person making it, the other 3 going home, that kind of thing. Whereas this round, it was more of like either you both go through, you both go home, or one goes through, one goes home, rather than like you said, trying to stand out against so many other people. Now, in my head, I think I probably would have preferred groups because I am very used to singing in groups and singing large harmonies and large ensemble sections and creating those kinds of arrangements. I just thought it would have been fun. And
Right.
also with like the drama and stuff, obviously we didn't have group round, so it wasn't that crazy, but like duet round there was still some kind of, you know, some issues and things,
Yeah.
but they didn't have to highlight it as much because there was a lot less, and it wasn't necessarily like contestant drama with each other fighting back and forth, excuse me. It was more like they weren't fighting back and forth, it was more of pressure getting to
Mm,
each other, getting to you, or you know, individual pressure, like one duet partner's crying and the other one's not, and then you know, one throws a fit and now they are following you around with cameras the whole time, like one that
yeah.
you guys, I mean, they showed one that did happen like that. They also didn't show a lot that did happen like that as well. Like there were a couple of people that I know that their duet partners were having a really hard time, and they mentioned something to a producer, and then all of a sudden they had cameras on them for the rest of the
Right.
day. And
Yep.
so those kinds of things, just like, you know, anticipating that they're going to catch something. Um, there's a lot less drama, fighting, that kind of stuff from duet round. However, I mean, I even found myself kind of getting caught up in it. You know, you're trying to direct, and in my situation with the duet, I had a little bit more of that technical knowledge, whereas he had more of that, like, you know, performance, like fun, energetic, that type of vibe. Whereas like I was more, you know, a little bit more polished. Like I was saying, he's like raw, very raw street performer, that kind of thing. And I had a little bit more of like polishedness to me. And so when we were, you know, going back and forth, like sometimes I would say something and he wasn't understanding it, or he'd say something and I wasn't understanding it because we weren't really speaking the same language. You know, it was a little bit different. You know, he's like, oh, I hear it like this, but I don't know how to explain it to you. And I'm like, well, I hear it like this, but I don't know how to explain it to you. And so those kinds of things that it did cause like a little bit of not problems, but time. It just
Sure.
caused a lot of time. You know, it was like, we want to go to bed in an hour. We got to get this figured out. Or I want to go to bed before 2 o'clock because I'm going to wake up at 3:30 and I need to get this, you know, done so I can go home and take my makeup off. And we ended up doing really well. The main thing was that like we weren't good with lyrics. Neither of us were good
Mm,
with lyrics. So once we got the arrangement down. We were like, okay, we're going home. We're both going to work on our lyrics by ourselves. And then when we come back tomorrow morning, we're going to have it down. We're going to run through it a couple of times. We're going to call it a day and we're not going to overwork it.
Mm-hmm.
That night I fell asleep with my steamer on my face,
Oh
like
my.
my vocal steamer on my face in the bed sleeping.
Hollywood Week. The beauty of Hollywood Week.
Yeah. And then the day I actually performed genre challenge at 5 a.m, I had just gotten out of the shower and was working on my makeup and an emergency alarm went off and I had to run
Oh,
down 57 flights of stairs.
wow.
So Hollywood Week is more than just what you see.
Yes. So I mean, there's a lot of people, I don't know roughly how many you think you may have met throughout your time there. Any particular standouts, whether we saw them or not, people that you just thought were really talented, people that you became close with, who sticks out in your
Yeah.
memories?
That's a great question. So speaking of me running down the stairs, actually, Allegra Miles and I were running down the stairs by
Oh
ourselves.
my
I mean, it was the
gosh.
two of us. I posted a video on Instagram. We were actually hilarious. An emergency situation is going on, and we're running down the stairs vlogging,
Right.
like, hey guys, it's 5 in the morning and
Of
we're running
course.
down the stairs, like, we don't know what the emergency is, but hopefully we don't die, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. We're like, watch American Idol. And so Allegra, she was awesome. Other people, Michelle Majors, she didn't get aired, but she was very, very incredible. She's such a genuine person,
Hmm.
and she lives in LA. We got really close, and we became really great friends. Also, Shockey, if you guys saw him, he was also like pictured but not really shown. And those two people I got super close with. I actually grew up singing with Rebecca Howell, who
Hmm.
was Jody Silver's duet partner. And her singing didn't get aired either, unfortunately. But all of these people I got very close with, and Rebecca I had actually grown up singing with, so that was great. But in as far as like standout vocal performances, Sage, who you guys got to see, incredible, stuck in my mind. For months after that, I was telling people I can't wait for you guys to hear this performance, and they actually didn't even show the one that I was like really wanting everybody to hear from her. She was great. And Christian Gordino and Nicolina during genre challenge, both of them sang Billy songs. And when I got home from Hollywood Week, all I could talk about was, you guys have to hear these two people who sang Billie Eilish songs and crushed them and made me forget they were Billie Eilish songs. Thank God they actually aired both of those performances because I had been dying for people to hear them. And then Leah Marlene, I actually went to school with her for a year at Belmont.
Me
She went
too.
to Belmont. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she went to Belmont and then she dropped out, and she is absolutely crushing it in the competition. And she's fully got my support. She's such a good person, and she's so talented. Every single thing that she did, it sounded like a Leah Marlene song, like singing, Skater Boy. That, like, what? And
What,
you're singing Skater
who are
Boy.
you? Like,
Yeah, singing Skater Boy and also in the indie folk genre and also singing with a 12-string guitar. Like, who are you? This crazy, cool, talented person. She is just, everything everybody wants to be wrapped up all in one. So those are my people I would say that like super stood out vocally and also just like as good friends.
and have you been watching the season?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Who's your take on, because as we're recording this, we've just gotten down to the top five.
Yeah.
Who do you think should be in the finale, and who would you like to be in the finale?
So that is a tough question. I definitely think that Nicolina and Leah are absolutely going to be in the finale. I think that they are going to be really hard to beat, those two. And I think that Noah, I would really like for him to be in the finale because he was in my line during Genre Challenge, which you stay with your line for a couple of days, kind of going through the process of everything. And so I got to get really close with Noah because we spent so much time together. And so I know he just had that like COVID performance, but I would
Killed it, by
really
the
like for
way.
him to, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I would love for him to move on, just because, he's such a genuine person, like I said. And also, he is the epitome of American Idol. He
Hmm.
didn't do anything with singing before, just loved to sing. And a friend, supporting him. And I actually got to meet the friend too, since we actually both auditioned in
Oh,
Austin as well.
Love
So
Arthur.
yeah, we got to meet Arthur. Yeah, exactly. And Arthur, it was so funny. We had this Snapchat group chat during the Austin auditions, and Arthur was videoing Noah every time he was
Oh
singing
my
and sending it
God.
in. And everyone in the group chat is like, "Oh my God, he's so good. Who is this
Yeah.
guy?" So yeah, that's probably, I would say, Leah and Nicolina, I think, are in the top two to win. And I would really like to see Noah there as well, just because he's a close friend. So
Yeah, he said in the show last night, he's like, I don't even know how social media really works. I don't even know what a hashtag is. He's just so raw. And I'd say the
yep,
closest thing that they had other than that this season to that kind of arc was Kelsey, who I was actually kind of bummed to see
Kelsey.
go, just because I kind of wanted to see what else she could do on the big stage, but it went how it went.
Yeah.
And it's been a good season. It really has.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm so thankful to just even be a part of it. But I know that this cast and this crew, like, we won't ever forget this season, and it's gonna stick in my mind forever. And I just went over about 100 million learning experiences that I had throughout that process. So I mean, my head is spinning all the time with how to go forward.
Well, Christina, I'm so thankful that I got to learn so much from you just about the show and about you as an artist and so many interesting things that came out of this conversation. I want to give you the opportunity to plug your socials, tell people where they can stream your music so that people can walk away knowing how to continue supporting you on your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me again. I'm so thankful for all that you're doing for all of us that unaired contestants. And if you want to continue my journey and continue following me, you can find me on Instagram at Christiana.Alaire. And you can find me on TikTok at Christiana Alaire, and then Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to your tunes. Same thing, Christiana Alaire. Go ahead and check it out, and lots of new fun stuff coming soon.
Cool. Well, speaking of tunes, we have a treat for you guys in just a minute. But before that, just some housekeeping. If you like this podcast, here's what you got to do. If you're on Apple Podcasts, which you know a lot of people are, you can follow so you don't miss a note of American Idol Unaired. Make sure that you rate and leave a review if you like the show because it'll drive up the algorithm. More people can hear it. Spotify is very similar. Only difference is you can't leave a review, but that's okay. You can follow and rate. And whatever other listening platforms you may be on, thank you so much. And I don't know about you, Christiana. I like to watch my podcast, which is why we're recording this whole thing
Absolutely.
on video. It's on YouTube, American Idol Unaired. You can find all of our interviews there. And make sure to follow us on Instagram or TikTok at Idol Unaired Podcast so you can find clips from the show and all the info that you need to know about our upcoming guests. So, Christiana, before we let you go, we are going to play your latest single called I Want It Back. Anything you want to tell us about this
Yeah.
song and why people should stream it and the process of writing
Yeah.
it?
This is this is one of those songs that I knew had to come out because when I wrote it, it basically fell out, and we wrote it super quick. And it was that my first song that I released that I specifically had an experience with, and that I wrote this song based off of my personal experience, where most of my other songs had been like storyteller type of songs or just like narratives. This was my own narrative, and something that I'd lived through and I felt like other people could relate to. And it's also so versatile in the sense of my other stuff is very country, soul, rootsy, bluesy, and this one is very stripped back, just country, and just like a soft ballad. So I hope you guys enjoy that one. And we've got lots more coming soon with lots of different vibes that aren't so ballad and slow, but we all got to have at least one of those.
Yeah, well, just guys, make sure to look out for whatever's coming next from Christiana. And right now, here's our latest single, Christiana Alaire, I Want It Back. Thank you guys so much for listening to American Idol Unaired.